So each year, as required by law, the board has to hold a public hearing on the proposed budget for the next school year. I will present to you some of the highlights of the budget that is attached. And then I've got a composite of the budget, obviously, but the entire budget will be available later on if you want to look at it. So the introductory letter kind of explains our position. Typically, we start with revenues. If you look at our revenue projections, they're very conservatively estimated. That way, if things come out better than anticipated, which they typically do, then it's a good thing. So what we've done with projected local revenues, which is over 50% of our revenues, is an increase of 3%, which equates to approximately $249,000 in the general fund revenues. That's based primarily on a conversation I had with the county assessor that estimated our increase in assessed valuation would be about 9.5%. Just to give you a little background on that, so when the recession occurred, the assessors across the state of Missouri were not typically accurately reflecting the true assessment, and so the state auditor came in and said you need to catch up. And so I think we're kind of in that phase where we're playing a little bit of catch up on the assessments, and so you probably see that on your property tax assessments. But we're kind of capped also by some limitations in the Constitution with the Hancock Amendment. So generally, we don't see that kind of an increase. So I don't think we'll see that whole 9.5%. If we do, that'll be great. But we'll find out a little bit more. And as you know, we can't really state what those revenues will be because we haven't had the tax rate hearing yet. So until we get the firm numbers from the assessor and can go through the tax rate hearing, we really don't know what that is. So it is truly a budget estimation at this point based on conversations with the county assessor. The foundation formula is fully funded. However, our student population continues to decline, which means that we will not see an increase in the formula revenue dollars. So we kind of anticipate that'll continue. I would say that just in reference to that, there's only really one school district that's seen consistently a growing population in the last few years, and that's Raymore Peculiar. So the other school districts which we are one of, are continuing to see decline in enrollment. I do think we'll see a little bit of an uptick in transportation. There was a time when they couldn't, when the legislature was struggling to fully fund the formula, and they would cut transportation. That was one of the few categoricals that was left in the revenue side, so it was easy, low-hanging fruit, I guess. And we'll see a little bit of an increase because I think the legislature's tried to compensate for that, but it's still, we're reimbursed at less than 20% of our actual.
I have a quick question about transportation. I know a couple of years ago at Emory, I was at something where he spoke and he said that funding for transportation for kids with special needs may be cut. Do we know where? I don't think that's happened, has it? Is it?
No.
Is it going to? Did that die?
It has not happened, and I haven't seen anything in the last couple of years that is going to encourage that. So no, I don't think that's going to happen. That'd be a rough one. So
it would be awful. Yes.
Yeah. So I also want to point out. So when we talk about revenues, we talk about local first because that's our largest section, state second because that's our second largest portion, and really we talk about federal next. And the federal is really. We talk about our title programs, Title I, Title II, Title IV. We'll see a slight decrease of about $3,000 in title funding. So, and then on the expenditure side, of course, our largest expenditure is tied to human resources, and we were able to give a $600 addition to the base this year. we made some adjustments in the schedule itself. Particularly, we added a step at masters so that we can work toward eventually getting that at the 30-year point. Represented a 3.3% increase for certificated staff. We did reduce overall our staff cuts amounted to about $500,000, but by the time you put in the additions through the increase, it was about $84,000 addition on the certificated schedule. We also increased non-certified by 3%, and then health insurance costs across the board increased to 3%, roughly $60,000. I would like to point out that on the health insurance, I do think we'll see some future reduction. We try to negotiate a reduction based on some changes to contracted services, and thought that might help us out. But we'll see. We'll continue to monitor those the usage on the health insurance to see what that does. So we'll have a stronger negotiating point next year, I think. And then, of course, we did contract maintenance and custodial in addition to savings in health insurance. I think we're going to see some savings in liability insurances too. So, not liability. What am I thinking of? There we go. Work comp. Thank you very much. And then purchase services and supplies. We did some things with textbooks. So we made some expenditures that will reflect an increase in textbooks so that we can supply those resources, curriculum resources, really, particularly this year for reading K through 6. We'll have to fill the SLP position with contracted services, so you'll see some changes on that. And then capital projects. You'll see a slight increase in capital project expenditures too. As we continue to fix infrastructure with the district, and I think Jason's doing a really good job of going through the Hollis and Miller plan and trying to address those things that we can knock off our list. So, and then you see we still have the lease certificate and the debt service general obligation rates that we're paying out. So that's the budget in a nutshell. One thing I do want to point out is that we do anticipate the fund balance percentage to go down. That is a concern. Kathy and I have talked about that too, and we need to keep a close eye on that because it's down to we estimate at the end of the year it could be down to about 18.2%, somewhere in that neighborhood. We don't have a formal budget policy that says what the board would indicate as comfortable for reserves. Some school boards do set a policy. It's difficult to do because it's based on your ratio of local to state dollars on how you become financially distressed. I'm not concerned about being financially distressed at this point, but we do need to make sure that we keep a close eye on that. It is a concern.
Can you speak to that just a little bit? I was trying to see where that percentage, why it was so low, because when I compared last year's budget to this year's budget, it didn't seem like there was that much big of a change.
I don't think we'll get there, Nancy. I think.
So you're just being cautious.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. I'm like, what?
I'm going to tell you the bad news before, and then at the end of the year we can tell you the good news.
So, haven't we said before that we like around 20%? Is that what we've said?
At least 20%.
23%.
24
Okay.
or something, wasn't it?
I think it was
Between 20 and 25 is good. Closer to 25 is healthy. Yeah.
Well, and it depends on how big your budget is part of it too. So you've got a little more room, but yeah, that's where I'd be comfortable.
we wanted it to stay like around 23, but didn't want it to be lower. I mean, below 20 was not
Right.
That was okay.
On your capital fund project budget, I noticed in looking at the ending of this year, there was a couple of line items where they were way off. We had budgeted, I think, Kathy, 8,800 for one, and it ended up being an expense of 23,000. And that was in like ground supplies, or I can't remember the cost. Are we anticipating more of that this year? And have
So it
we
depends
increased
on
that budget?
it depends on what it is. So sometimes you have like a pipe burst, so you have to cover that. That's not a budgeted item, so you have to transfer money to cover that. So that particular, without seeing that specific item,
Did that burst once or twice this year?
twice,
Twice. That's what I thought.
Twice, and then we replaced it.
right? But the first time, money doesn't come out of capital projects because it's a contracted service.
Mm.
The second time, when you replace the pipe, that comes out of Fund 4.
Okay.
And I think it was a maintenance and repair item. It was several different items, so.
Right.
And that's what happened.
Yes.
with that.
We did have some. I
Repair.
mean, we had some issues, and the pipe being one of those issues. So.
Well, I'm just saying that, if it was such a bigger expense than what we anticipated, should we pad that line item with more?
Honestly, I would love to do that. Being honest, my philosophy is to try to put money in capital projects,
Right.
just like I talked about at our work session, to try and build that as a savings account. We don't have the flexibility in our budget to
Okay.
do that. So we can't do that right now because there's things you can do. I mean, June's the time you can So you see in there, we've got a transfer to cover into Fund 2 to pay the teachers. So you can do a one-time transfer, 7%, WADA transfer. There's different things you can do to transfer money to capital projects, but you have to have money in operating to do that. We don't have that, so yeah.
And then how's it working with the scoreboards and stuff? Are they on track to
Yes.
pay for everything? And
Well, no, it does. It makes the payment for the scoreboard. They had projected in originally that we would have more that we could share with athletics and activities. It's never grown to that. So,
okay.
but it does cover the yearly payment.
Okay. Because we were thinking it would be a
Over and
moneymaker
above, yeah.
eventually.
Yeah,
Which it will be once the scoreboard is paid off.
that's correct.
Right. Okay.
If we continue to keep the same sponsors.
How long do we have to pay it off? A couple of years?
It was a 5-year.
5, I think. I think it was 5.
A couple of years, probably.
And the scoreboard was struck by lightning too. So
It was?
well, part of it that we had a big lightning strike on that pole out there, which we've turned over to insurance. It has affected the scoreboard. Brent's been gone, so I don't know what. We've been trying to turn it on to see, so it'll be an insurance claim. But
Yeah.
yeah,
My parents' house got hit by lightning too. Fried everything.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yep. Okay.
That's what I have.
Okay.
It's difficult to give the true final numbers until again we have the tax rate hearing and can talk about
when
that.
is that?
But August. Yeah. So I did talk to LJ Hart a little bit about maybe transferring. So the lease, if you look at the lease purchase certificates, the interest rate on lease purchase certificates usually runs about 4%. If you can rotate that into general obligation bonds, it's a better rate. But that takes a vote to do that. So that's an option down the road if we want to look at that.
And when you say vote of the board or vote of the people?
No, vote of the people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a vote of the people. So, but anyways, that's further discussion. That would just be a savings, is what that would amount to. And really, when I looked at it, I think turf is probably the biggest one on there, Kathy, because I think scoreboards is about paid off. But the turf would be one that, if we rolled over, could save some money on that. Generally, if you have a large payment on lease purchases, that's when you're going to save more money. But the interest rate, it's just a way to save on your interest rate. So.
Well, and to your point that we need to start saving away for a pipe burst or rainy day, what do we need to achieve, or tax level wise? How do we need to start doing that?
Well,
I know we need money, but
I think that's part of our strategic plan. Is we need to look at. We need to address those key areas. So you got to focus on dealing with the fact that our certificated and non-certificated salaries could be more competitive. That's something we've heard a lot, but in order to do that with the existing revenues, it's going to be difficult. So I think that's part of the community conversations with strategic planning to see how we want to accomplish that. There's different ways to accomplish it. We can keep cutting and cause class sizes to go up, reduce services, and there's things we can do. So we have to be open to everything, I think, and listen to our community. So. But I think that's a very important piece. In my opinion, it's a very important piece of our strategic plan that was left out of the last strategic plan. There's not anything in there about fiscal operations.
Cass Career Center, the funding for that, is that all through like grants? I mean, where does?
So you got Perkins money that goes to it, but no, we fund it too, and we have revenue that comes in through sending schools.
Sending schools,
They pay
okay.
tuition, so.
Okay.
But Perkins is a big part of that.
Okay.
Right.
Any other discussion? All right. We will start open session at 7 o'clock.